Hi, my name is Vlad, and today I'm going to do a presentation about how I produced a song that can easily belong to the electronic music genre. For the past 10 years, I've kind of been that person who explored this genre constantly. I started to listen to various types of electronic music, from dub music to old house, Chicago, or Detroit techno genre. This made me dig for unknown soundtracks and explore the underground electronic music culture. Having this process of learning how to listen critically and produce it made me realize that I didn't know anything about music. Because I have lots of producers that I like, this time I considered that I didn't want and need to get inspired by any of their composition, and challenged myself to create something that appealed to my feelings and tastes. Following the basic rules of electronic music, I've decided to produce a song with 125 BPM and the 4 on 4 signature. To evoke specific darker emotions and moods through my composition, I decided to use the E minor scale and chords progression. The next step in this process was to create an arrangement view where I could set some barriers and give myself freedom to make changes. Having a total of 88 bars, I decided to do each intro, outro, verse 8 bars and each chorus 16 bars. After I structured my arrangement, I decided that firstly I'm going to start building a good melody foundation and leave the drums at the end. The idea I had was to sample some vocals and adjust the playback speed of an audio file without changing its pitch. This tool was used on Laurie Anderson's performance from an experimental track called Walking and Falling. Using the virtual audio driver called Black Hole, I managed to route this to my MacBook and sample the soundtrack from the Amazon Music platform at its best quality. Using this common progression of 1671 felt good from the start. This pattern was used because was adding tension within its D dominant seventh and followed the resolve back to the tonic chord. The first instrument that I started to experiment with was a polysynth generated by Alchemy in Logic Pro. Due to the wide variety of sounds that can be produced, I considered this type of synth the best option for me to create a lead. Going through some presets and doing slight changes on XY parameters, I found some clean harmonies for my sound. That pad movement over time allowed me to create dynamic changes in my instrument during the playback. To create a sense of depth, I added an extra layer using a different type of synthesizer. The role of this ES2 synthesizer was to add more texture to the main source. The sound was kept simple without having dramatic changes on any of those filter or modulation sections. The triangle waveform was picked because was less powerful than the sawtooth one, and with a bandpass filter applied served as a nice layer of release for the primary source. An instrument that serves as an ambience in this composition, and we hear it through the entire play, was the smooth analog section selection. Here I selected that harmonic richer tone and made some changes in the Y2 modulation parameter until it felt like a big, darker sense of atmosphere. To provide a strong foundation for rhythmic elements, I decided to build a sub bass instrument. Another purpose of this was to create a contrast within the composition. This was used strategically to provide excitement and a sense of deepness. Here, the sound made use of an analog funk preset from a retro synth instrument. I felt that the sound was quite basic and decided to experiment a bit with the arpeggiator mode that Logic provided. I spent some time to find the right variation of movement until it felt that was complementing the other layers from the track sync and syncing with them. To make the second part of the chorus more interesting, I created some plugs sound for movement within ES1 and added an arpeggiator pattern as well. Due to sawtooth characteristics and its buzzy, complex, rich tone timbre, the choice of this sound was easy to pick. The sound timbre was shaped directly by setting the attack and decay shorter. Keeping motion and interest in my musical section, the arpeggiator was used as eighth note with a supple pattern, moving forward and back. Progressing through the melody construction indicated to me that I could start writing some drum beats. For this part, I made use of loops from the samplemarket.com website. With these multiple packs, I tried to find a better sound that could fit into my production style. Having this said, some loops have been dragged and chopped into the sampling function of Logic Pro. The placement of the kicks and claps kept together the rhythm and the energy of an electronic track. On the basic downbeat of the 1, 2, 3, 4 pattern, I placed another kick offbeat to add more complexity to the rhythm. The claps were placed on the second and fourth backbeat, creating a rhythmic contrast with the kick and contributing to the overall groove. After that, I tried to find sounds with different timbres that filled and added variations to my rhythm structure. Those percussion elements improved overall the energy of the track. However, the pattern drums were done simply on purpose, giving listeners space to focus more on elements that shine in the rest of the composition. To get my production sound bigger and complete, I decided to go back to the melody stack and add extra layers to the sound. Searching in the Logic Pro library, I found two samples that fit the tempo of my track. Using the vocoder technique, I managed to combine the natural human voice with the synthesized tone. Manipulation of the vocal signals pitch, timbre, and dynamic was achieved by modulating it with a synthesized carrier signal. This procedure allowed me to expand my creativity over the texture sound, keeping the overall production more intense. The result of the effect was made by using different presets on each sample and experimenting with signal path, voices, frequency spectrum, and stereo width. The samples bounced in place with the vocoder effects resulted into individual instrument layers. To avoid the same boring song structure, in verses 2 and 3 I changed the chord progression into 1 4 7 1. Here the length of the notes was played differently, enhancing that call and response technique. To not get a big difference between the chorus and verse section, the instruments were similar to the first ones and had the same preset with small changes on the pad's parameters and envelope. The next added layer was trying to stay in contrast with the high lead frequencies. After I played the track a couple of times, I felt that there were some gaps between the chorus and verse sections. To deal with that problem, I took a cinematic transition from the library loop, added reverb on it, bounced it in place, and turned on the reverse mode. The second transition was created to complement the first one, maintaining a smooth, seamless flow between those two sections. Due to its wide variety of sounds, the analog retro synth was the right choice to achieve that white noise. Making some changes to the amp envelope and filter envelope segments helped me to achieve a longer sound over time. With this transformation, I intended to create a sense of anticipation and suspense for the audience. Until the final steps of production, I paid attention to all my audio signal channels to not pass the nominal levels and not interfere with any digital distortion. Due to the theory of frequency masking, I tried to design each instrument differently within their distinct timbre. Applying that principle made me understood how important it is to keep your production clean and accurate without having any sounds overlapping through their frequency components. Taking psychoacoustics into consideration was essential to achieve the best desired sonic result. Since the instrument elements were picked with care and sounded nice, I didn't apply a lot of effects on my composition. To get some space, I added some reverb on percussion elements, and for the movement, I created a small delay effect for claps. To get a more prominent and punchy kick, I sidechained it with a compressor with the bass. This technique was used to create space and clarity in the mix, reducing the clash of the frequencies. The OTT multiband compression plugin was used to allow precise control over the dynamics and turned all my instruments into a more cohesive and unified mix. Just a bit of that compression and already felt that all the layers behaved as one instrument. To get a bit of movement, motion, and sound effects in the mix, I used the automation tool. Due to this minimalistic style of production, I felt there was no need to do big changes to automation. Having this song finish made me realize that probably next time I'll try to do a longer version where I probably pay more attention on the writing and production stage. Thank you for watching my presentation. Bye.